But every time I look back at the live, like the first 5 seconds is cut off, and I'm like, "Welcome everyone," misses the whole thing. So, anyways, let's see here. Is there a better way for me to? There we go. That's better.
Is that better?
Well, no, but just like you were,
Yeah, I'm just experimenting here.
because
Okay.
right now we're splitting the screen, so now like it's half
Perfect.
anyway, so it looks good.
Yep.
So, what is up, everyone? I'm Bryan, the Beekeeping Realtor, here with Colm. And today we're going to be going over just the market because I know the real estate side. Colm is a lender with what's the company again?
Dignified Home Loans.
Dignified Home Loans. I've got a scrambled brain lately. I know that, but remembering on the spot with the camera, no. But anyways, so we're going to go over just the market. So we do kind of two different versions of this. If you join our channel, you will notice that once a month there is going to be the market update as a video, super concise, super, 3 minutes, get the short version. And then we do the live version here where we have just a lot more of a deep dive, a lot more of a chit chat. We're learning it as we go. So if you're coming in with real estate questions or really want to see what we're thinking about before we make our market updates, this is the place to be. If you want the short version, the weekly video is the place to be. So how is business going, man?
People are still getting in touch. People are still calling, emailing, inquiring about, their chances at affording a home loan right now.
Mm-hmm.
But most people, the difficulty is qualifying right now. So I'm finding that people are being a little bit more accepting of the, quote unquote, high rates that we have right now. And so that's a good thing that people are like, hey, this is where we're at. This is where the market's at. I still would like to take advantage of investing in real estate and buying my own home. So that's been picking up a little bit, it seems like, at least for me. But again, the affordability is a little bit of a shock for some people when I do the numbers and then it's like, well, this is what your monthly payment would be. And they are not expecting that. Because they are paying less in rent right now than that payment. So
I don't know. Did you see the last video that I made that I put up on buying versus renting?
I saw the thumbnail. I have not watched it, to be honest.
So that's been a big thing for me is informing people that like so look, the monthly payment, it's buying's higher right now. Like there's no way around that. Buying is higher.
Sure.
But you get so many benefits between your equity and your tax write-offs and everything like that.
Sure.
That like, because I have one client that I actually did that video on that they're like, it's gonna be my rent's $3,500 a month. To buy that same house is like $5,500 a month. Why would I want to throw away $2,000 a month?
That's the exact scenario that I've typically been running into. Yeah.
Right. But then once I penciled it all out for them, it's like, look, it's actually like $15,000 less per year, really, to own it versus rent it. So that's been really helpful for me. I've been seeing the same kind of thing in my clients is that a lot of people, basically once the rates started going up from 3, everyone kind of clenched in and was like, no one's going to be able to afford this, which has kind of been the I don't know, the mantra of real estate for the last like 6 years, right? Is, oh, it can't possibly go higher. No one can afford this. And then they do. And then the prices go up. And it feels like with my clients that they, 4 months ago, 5 months ago, were like, I'm never buying because prices didn't go down. There's no way it's going to ever hit like 6%. And now we're at like 7.5%. And they're like, well, it's time to buy.
Right. I mean, it's always the right time to buy was always yesterday, people say. And yeah, you're right. Like, as you said, home price appreciation, gaining equity in the home. In the end, right, you're saving yourself money and gaining that appreciation. But yeah, talking about monthly payment, you can afford it or you can't. So
that's been the other big thing that I've been dealing with is a lot of people being like, well, my payment is whatever it is, $3,000 for rent. I'm just going to save up 20%. And I'm like, okay, so you're going to put away $2,000-$3,000 a month and hope that prices don't go up instead of putting that into your mortgage and then knowing the price won't go up. So, it feels like it's hard to swing. I'm not going to say like it's only $5,000 a month or whatever, because that's crazy. but it feels like if you can swing it, it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what I've been preaching for the last year and a half or whatever it's been is if you can afford it, jump on in, because less competition right now. Uh, Sellers are willing to negotiate a little bit, maybe. It just depends on the situation.
Mhm.
But if you're going to wait for rates to come down, prices are probably going to go up even higher. And everyone else is going to say, oh, now it's time to buy. So, if you can afford to, why not?
Yeah, I mean that's been the national news. And just to step aside really quick, because we do have viewers tuning in right now, which is awesome.
Good.
If you have questions or comments about what's going on, put it in the chat. We're happy to engage with you. It's half the purpose of us being here on the live is to engage with you guys if you have questions, comments, whatever. But what I'm seeing a lot of is just people coming to terms with the new rates, and it seems to be picking up because there's all these headlines all the time too where it's like this city has crashed or this city has crashed. And as we get into data here specifically, like no two cities are the same. Like just because the headline says crash, that doesn't mean that it's hitting like the 55 plus part of Camarillo the same way it's hitting like the luxury end of Westlake. So
Sure.
a lot of people, I think, I don't want to say get deceived because that's not totally fair, but they see the headlines of what's going on maybe as a national trend or as a local trend somewhere else and like feeling like they know what's going on. But at the end of the day, the only real way to know, I feel like, is to join in on these types of local videos.
Yeah, because it's hyper local, like
Mhm.
hyper local.
Very, very much so. So, let's dig in and talk about what's going on with the market. Before we get to your part, I'm going to pull up, if I can click on the right button here.
I wish I'd actually put in my full name and the company I work for, but
Well, all your info is underneath too. So if people do want all of your info,
yeah,
it's down below. And of
I'm
course, we
just
can always
Colm. I'm
reach
just a guy that like tunes in to talk with you. You know, just a friend.
just some weirdo, that just shows up and happens to know things for some reason. So this is from Keeping Current Matters, which I do have a little bit of trouble with this because the numbers specifically aren't super accurate. So we're not looking at the specific numbers on this. We're looking at basically the trends, right? That's what's important to me for this portion. So the little orange bar, I don't know how visible this is, but the little orange bar is going to be the national trend. The blue bars are Ventura County. We're not looking at specific cities here, just the whole county combined. So you'll kind of notice that, first of all, for listings, they tend to be going up nationwide. I think you could argue that we're going up, but not by much. We've been kind of since the bottom, we've been more or less flat. There might be a slight trend up, but very, very minor. So our number of listings just really aren't increasing. We're pretty stable compared to the country where it's going up, which is maybe why other parts of the country are seeing price reductions because on average their number of listings are going up, but ours really isn't by much, right? Same with the number of active listings. While we, compared to our peak, we are way down compared to the average trend here. But our average listings, while they are going up, our active listings are going up, they're not going up anywhere near like the rest of the country, which again, I think really skews our average in that way. New listing count. Our new listings are pretty in tune with everybody. So we have the same number of new listings, just not as many active, not as many total. Pending listings, again, we're looking pretty average. Our median price was doing some weird stuff, but we're starting to kind of catch up again, not to the national amount, but to match the national trends, right? We're kind of roughly in line with what's going on nationally in terms of price increases and that kind of stuff. You will notice that in the last couple of months, nationally, the price has been going down. We had a really weird drop a couple months ago, and we've come up. So while
Yeah,
everyone else is kind of coming down,
that was erased pretty quickly. Yeah.
we're on an upward trend. The median list price per square foot, Ventura County always cracks me up because we're usually very optimistic on our median list price, but we're right about on average. We had a slow minute there for a couple months, but again we're kind of coming in line with the national average. So we were a little bit lagging behind before we caught up. Days on market in line with all the averages. This one's really fun for me. The number of price reductions nationally, way, way higher than what we're seeing, right? We're not seeing anywhere near as many or as dramatic of price reductions as the rest of the country. And then that is really pushed by our months of inventory. So when we're looking at months of inventory means if we were to stop listing today, how long would it take to sell out of homes? Keep in mind the numbers on here. I have them very small, kind of for a reason, because it says 1.2. That's not accurate. But when we compare to the trends, right, us versus everywhere else, our inventory is really, really low compared to the rest of the country. So, on that front, I feel like we are not going to be seeing the same types of behavior as maybe the average is, because we seem to be having less inventory pop up. There's a lot of reasons, I think, for that. But in general, where a lot of people are concerned about a crash or thinking that things are slowing down and that kind of stuff, it seems like we're not seeing it out here. I'm not seeing it out here. Are you seeing anything that indicates a slowdown or crash or anything negative coming anytime soon?
Absolutely not. Now, do you mean just the housing market, or do you mean the economy?
Well, housing market specifically, because I'm not a financial advisor, right? So
Right.
Like a big concern for most people is like, oh, well, if I just wait 6 months, the prices will go down.
No.
And we're starting to see headlines where it's popping up in other parts of the country, but it's not hitting us anywhere close.
I read something about that today, actually. Yeah, where there are some price reductions nationally, right? That's increasing. But I think coastal California, Ventura County, you have the influx of people from Los Angeles willing to pay, the listing price or more to get a home out here. So, yeah, maybe that's a factor.
So where are rates at today for, average home buyer?
Average national rate, right? Survey of lenders, 7.4. They were up to 7.65 recently. They've come down a little bit, but that doesn't really, it's been volatile, 7 point something to 7.56, up and down, up and down, up and down. So.
And this time last month, it was about 7, give or take, right?
Yeah. So we've come up quite a bit, and that's, unprecedented, like rates. It's just been crazy. It hasn't been a good time for lenders. And
so are there any signs of it slowing down?
What's that?
Are there any signs of it like maybe going down or slowing down anytime soon?
I think it's just going to be next year. Some people say by the end of this year we could have a little dip in rates. Others say we could be up to 8% by the end of the year. But most people are saying end of 2024 possibly, when we might see, we might dip into the 6s or high 5s. It depends on who you talk to, but yeah, majority of people, another 12 to 18 months possibly of this. So
I don't know. I'm pessimistic. I think it might be a little longer than that, but we'll see. I don't know. But
yeah, it's the Fed is being very hawkish. Their language is very hawkish around this, and they're staunch on, unless we really see the economy slowing down and jobless claims going up, and until they have inflation under control to I think it was, 2.1, that's their goal. We're still quite far from that. So, this is going to be jobs data week coming up. And jobless claims are still strong at the last Fed meeting with that data, and we'll just have to see. And all of this is dependent on there not being a government shutdown. So if that happens, then we won't actually find out anything from the Fed. But their language is still very hawkish about long-term rates, keeping them where they are, or even having rate hikes, and that impacts the bond market, right?
So that's brought up an interesting question, though. So if there is a government shutdown, which I think they averted it, I'm not sure 100%. But if there is a government shutdown, does that increase rates or decrease rates? How does that impact it?
I don't know if anything will happen with. Obviously, you can't know. They're not going to have a meeting. They're not going to do anything. What would that do? Would that just freeze rates? Would that have them go up? I'm
I
really
don't
not
know
sure.
because I didn't think about it until you mentioned it, and I'm like, actually, that's an interesting question. So,
I mean, that's a tough one. So typically when the economy is doing bad, or something bad is happening, then rates go down. So even when we had the recent banking crisis with Silicon Valley, like the market actually reacted in a way that rates went down a little bit initially. So who's to say? I'm not really sure. If we do have a government shutdown, what that'll do to rates, because we're in such a weird environment. Like historically, where we're at, um, rates shouldn't still be this high. It's just recovering from COVID and all of
right.
that inflation and all that overstimulation of the economy that the Fed did. So now we're paying for it.
So on the lender side, because this is also what I think most of the viewers want to know, is okay, rates are high. What, I mean, not that we can do everything in the world to fix it, but what kind of programs, what kind of things are we doing to try and ease that burden on clients? You know, I'm seeing a lot of buy downs, but are there any things in particular that you might recommend for someone looking at the rates being like, oh my gosh, 7.5, maybe 8.5 by the time they buy in a couple months, right? What type of relief or things do you think the average buyer should be looking for to try and help?
So first off, the government and the quasi-government agencies that kind of run things, they're trying to get more and more creative and put more money towards affordable housing. But that kind of stuff takes a while. There's a lot of red tape around that. But as far as what people can do for themselves, you can consider something like a government loan, like a USDA loan. Maybe you need to move to Fillmore or Oakview or wherever it might be to get zero down and take advantage of a lower rate, which USDA is probably about 6.8 or 6.9 right now. So it's better than 7.4.
Right.
And maybe just start getting a little more creative in your thinking about where you can live. Make some compromises, make some sacrifices.
But just to
The
focus on that,
Cal the Cal HAFA
Mhm.
program. Remember the Dream for All?
Right.
That's coming back, right? It came out last April, and the money was gone in 11 days. And unless you literally were pre-approved and like had a property and already made your offer, like you weren't getting any of that money. Those
Right.
people got in, and that's coming back. And we're going to get an update in the fall. We don't really know yet, but it's just going to be an update, which I think they're going to announce that in the spring of 2024, they will re-release the program. And what I've heard is that it will likely be like a lottery style system. So you're pre-approved, you go into that lottery, and then they pick,
Lucky
however many,
winners.
however many people. So it's
So with all of that in mind for everyone watching, as we get a 1% increase in mortgage rates, it's about a 10%, not quite a 10% price increase in your monthly payment, right?
sure,
So, as we're seeing month over month, it being a 0.5% increase, we're seeing not quite like a 5% give or take increase in your payment. So the reason we talk about the mortgage first is that kind of paints the picture for all these other things that we're doing, because even if the prices don't go up, payments have gone up by
sure,
5%, give or take.
sure.
So, when we are looking at this next part, you have to keep that in mind. Sorry, it goes into the crazy world thing here. So, looking at Ventura County here, if we look at our number of listings, we've been flat, right? We were crazy last year. We had all kinds of listings. And then we kind of hit like January, and we really haven't had more listings since, which is bizarre because usually we peak out in the summer and crash in the winter, and it's not following normal trends whatsoever. And our number of sold listings is, again, like it came up a little bit, which is very uncharacteristic for the summer. Usually, as we have, summer last couple of months, it really rises, and we're flat because it kind of seems like the rates going up and the prices going up at the same time is
Yeah.
just enough strain to not have us crash, but to keep, the number of listings at least nice and stable. When we
A
look at
double
our
whammy.
listing
Yeah.
prices, our big bar here for sold median price, again, I recognize that it is going up, but when we compare it to the last several years where, we had a nice curve, it's still relatively flat and just kind of steadily increasing. So, month over month, we did go up this last month to 857. Which is, I think, our all-time record. I think because the last 12 months, our highest was 856. So for anyone trying to hold off and wait, like if you've been waiting since January when the median price was 750, it's gone up $100,000 on you while you've been waiting, right? On top of the rates going up, on top of everything else that's gone crazy. So this is where I tend to try to push folks to, like, if you can buy, you should buy, because waiting hasn't done you any good in the last year.
Yeah, and you've missed out on those home values going up. Yeah.
Exactly. And I mean, I'd love to say that one day it'll go down. It feels like one day it should eventually, right? But again, we've been saying that for 6 years. So how long do you hold off waiting for it to go down? The good news here is that when we look at absorption rate, which again is our metric of if we were to stop listing homes today, how long would it take to sell, is up to 2.17 months. Now, that isn't a big change year over year. It is pretty typical for like this time of year, but it is a slightly more favorable buyer's market. I always have to be really careful when I say that, because in a healthy market where it's an even ratio of buyers to sellers, we're at somewhere, depending on the expert you talk to, it needs to be between like 4 and 6. So being at 2, that's way better than we were at 1.65, but it's still like a very strong seller's market, right? In terms of sold to list ratio, people are selling about asking price, slightly below, right? People tend to change their price slightly. So there's a 0.8% fluctuation there between original price and what they actually sell for. But people are mostly getting what they want for their homes, as long as they're being reasonable about it. The days on the MLS are at 37 for the average total time. So you'll notice there's DIM and CDIM. CDIM is cumulative, so that means even the homes that fell out of escrow. So average across all homes is 37 days. Slightly up from the 33 we had a couple months ago, but way down from the 60 plus we were seeing 6+ months ago. So overall, still a really strong time to sell. Kind of a bummer time to buy, but it just doesn't get better. And for all the people that I said was in a bummer time to buy, 3 years ago, they don't regret it now, So it's always tough to keep things in perspective, because like a lot of buyers, when they are looking at the highest price ever and all kinds of stuff like that, right? But then when they look at several years ago, it's like, man, I wish I could have done that. And it just kind of seems to be our normal cycle out here is wishing that we would have bought 3 years ago.
Oh yeah, wishing I'd bought 10 years ago.
I know. I was stubborn when I was young, and I'm like, I would never buy a condo. I'm going to buy a house, or I don't want to. And now I'm like, man, I should have bought a condo. So all of that aside, looking at year over year, not a tremendous amount of change compared to last month. Absorption rate has gone up almost 4%. So not really anything significant on that front. Our median list price, median list price I don't care as much about, because list price is dreaming, right? Median sales price is the reality. The median sales price countywide is up not quite 9% year over year. So, as much as people may say there's a crash, we're up 9% in pricing. So not anytime soon from what I can tell. And it seems like every year you wait, you're paying an extra, 9, 10, 20, whatever percent. So if your wages aren't going up 10, 20% per year, buy what you can now, The average days on market are actually down year over year. It's only 37 compared to 40 this time last year. And the median CDIM, which means if you don't fall out of escrow, is a little bit better, at 21 days on market compared to 29. So homes are selling even faster than they did last year. One of the biggest things doing all of this, of course, is our sold listings. Right now, our sold listings countywide for last month were 421 compared to 611 this time last year. And that's a 31% decrease.
Yeah.
So,
That's significant.
People not selling is really propping all of this up. So anything else you want to bring up on this, or any questions anyone has about the market before we hop on to more parts? Very good, very good. So the next big thing to look at, and you're gonna have to bear with me a little bit because AirDNA just updated its whole everything. It's like the way it works, the way it charges, everything's all funky. So everything's changed. The good news is we have a lot more data. If people want more specific data for more areas, it's much more open now than it was. It was kind of limited. But the bad news is that it's different, and we're gonna have a little bit of trouble finding things. So we're still going to look at the city of Thousand Oaks because Thousand Oaks in general is one of our best cities for Airbnbs because it has a lot of county land in it. So they're a little bit more relaxed and a little bit more available. Like I've said this before, but I believe most of Camarillo, if not all of Camarillo, only allows 30-day rentals, which really skews the data. So when we look at Thousand Oaks, the average annual revenue for an Airbnb is $74,000 a year. That's up 37% year over year, even though we've had a huge influx of the number of Airbnbs because we went from, I believe, around 40 during the pandemic to I think we have something like, I think it's like 110, 120 right now. So even though we had a flood of Airbnbs hit the market, it is still making more money per unit. The occupancy rate is up to 65%. That is a 16% boost from last year. The average daily rate is $315. Again, a 32% increase compared to last year. And I've got no idea what RevPAR is. Again, it's a new feature, and I just learned about it today, so we're not going to talk about that part. So overall,
doesn't sound like Airbnb crashed for Thousand Oaks.
No, we were
quite the opposite.
No, we were so worried because in the pandemic when it really crashed, there were only 40, and I don't know if it'll show. Yeah, I mean, it's saying there's like 95 rentals right now, but I don't think that's right. No, 152. So it went from like 40 to 152 listings. And at the time it was like, there's no way that the prices are going to hold steady. There was all kinds of articles in Airbnb bust, right? And a year later we're doing better than ever. So again, it's just more evidence that we need to ignore the national trends because we're not the whole country. We're one small area.
Right.
We are seeing a huge influx in rentals, in room rentals. Private rooms there's 49 private room rentals out of 105 out of the 150 total. So a lot of people are renting out rooms in their house, which I don't know if that's good or bad. Is it people that are having a hard time? Is it people trying to take advantage of the market? I don't know. But in general, entire home rentals are still the main demographic, but we're seeing a lot more private room rentals. Most rentals are 1 to 90 days, but there is a significant rental market on Airbnb and VRBO for people that are 91 days to a year, which blew my mind. It's only about 38% of all rentals right now are only 1 to 90 days, which even 1 to 30 days I thought would be the main demographic. But
yeah, that's what I would have thought as well.
It's very different out here. And like I said, the rental growth, because last month there was 152, now we're 154. So they're popping up way faster than they're going away. This always cracks me up. In September of 2020, we had 60. Yeah, at our bottom we were at 60. So not only have we over doubled, but we're sustaining it just fine. So it's a really, really good time to get into Airbnb. I was a little bit iffy on it before, but and then when we look at it, I've got to fix and upgrade my plans and things because again, they just changed everything. But for right now, for an entire home, on average, if you're not renting a room, the average annual income is $97,000 or $98,000 a year, which again is a 30% increase. So if you're trying to figure out what to do with your home, you can make almost $100,000 a year you probably make more than that if you're above average, right? Just by putting on Airbnb. Now you got your management fees, all that kind of stuff. But I always try and push my sellers and my buyers to consider the value based on that, because we could potentially sell it for a lot more if we find the right Airbnb guy, right?
Right.
So that's all huge. And again, just another illustration of how much people were making per month. Back in February, it was only like $3,600 a month, and now we're up to $6,200 a month. So we've really taken off in the last year.
Wow.
So let's see. Sometimes we get some Airbnb folks in the comments. Any questions about Airbnb from everybody, as strong as it is? Nothing now?
That's just shocking. Like those numbers are. I would have thought the opposite. I don't know.
And it did for a minute, right? They did go down as the rate started going up, but then it was such a weird dynamic because so many people were like, forget it, I'm just going to Airbnb it. And I'm like, if you all do that, it's going to crash. There's no way that many people want to rent your stuff, right?
Right.
But as a result of the increasing prices, if you can Airbnb a unit for a certain amount, it's worth it, right? So the increasing prices has made it harder to buy and invest in Airbnbs, but it's also made the demand for them go up because everything else has gone up so much. So that aside, we got our local markets. Let's get this back on. Take a look at local markets. I always like to work my way from the east side to the west side. So starting out with Westlake, what I really love about looking at these by cities is that every city kind of has its own culture and its own demographic, right? So Westlake is, I would argue, at least the Ventura County part, as far as Ventura County goes, the most affluent, high-end, on average community out of all of them. So stuff's going to impact them the exact opposite as it would impact like Oxnard or Port Hueneme, right? So they were having a really tough time because the interest rates spooked a lot of people off. But the number of listings jumped up last month and has kind of stayed where they're keeping a relatively decent number of listings in the city. The listing prices, though, have continued to creep up, which is weird because we had this big dip way back in like November of last year when everyone was like, forget it, I'm never buying $1 million house at that interest rate. And they kind of stabled out, in like, what is that, made in June. And they're creeping up again, which doesn't sound like a big deal that's creeping up again, but we're coming into the winter time. Typically, like September, October is kind of where stuff starts falling off because everyone's back in school, right? But we're seeing the prices creep up. So as much as, again, some people are like, no, the market will crash because, the rates are so high, no one can afford it. Well, people are affording it. Our month supply, this is going to be one of the highest in the county because it's always higher on luxury homes. It always takes longer to sell them, right? We've kind of plateaued at 3.14, which is kind of interesting because, again, at 4, it kind of becomes an even market. So it's still a definite strong seller's market, despite how crazy the interest rates are and how slow everyone says it is. The sold to list ratio, they are getting battered a little bit in the last month. They're only selling at 96% of their list price, but that bothers me less than the median sales price because this can go down as much as we want, but if the median's the same, all that's happening is we have dreamers, right? We have people making their list price really high.
Right.
Days on MLS, if you're out in Westlake, you should expect to be on market, give or take around 47 days. 41 if you don't fall out of escrow, but it's going to take about 2 months between starting the list and getting sold. And overall, year over year, we were a little bit worried about it in the summer because our year over year pricing was down, but our median sales price right now is 1.5 million. That's a 14% increase year over year. So as volatile as even they are up. But the downside is that the days on market right now is around 47 compared to 36. So it's going to take you an extra 10 days-ish to sell your home, but you're going to get 14% more than you would have last year. And again, it's painted by the number of listings. We've got sold listings are way down. down 30%. We only sold 28 last month compared to 40 the year before, which is a very different story than Simi Valley, because Simi Valley is going to be illustrated by much more affordability, right? A very, very different demographic. So we look at them, again, relatively stable. Listing prices are creeping up on the sold average sales price, creeping up on the sold median sales price. Median sales price in Simi Valley right now is $825,000. The absorption rate is hanging right around 1.6. The sold to list ratio, they're actually selling on average more than their listing price at 101%. Days on the MLS can take you about 34 days to sell your home. Price volume's down. Our overall absorption rate is at 1.6. So it is a much more aggressive market than it was a year ago when it was 2.2. So that's a 26%. I don't know how to say that, increase, decrease. It's much more, 26% more aggressive for buyers and nicer for sellers, harder for buyers, right? Average list price has gone up slightly. The median sales price, which I really like, is up 11% year over year. So again, if you're looking at buying in Simi and you wait a year, you're gonna pay, an extra $75,000, $80,000 just for waiting.
The cost of waiting. Yes.
Cost of waiting. So Moore Park is our weird city to me, because Moore Park has it's kind of rural. It's like in the farmland kind of. There's not a lot there. You don't really visit Moore Park unless you live there. And it makes it such a weird city because they have super luxury ranches and also a ton of manufactured homes, right? So their numbers are always very volatile, and they tend to kind of sit on our outlier list for going up and down the most. Like when we look at active median list price, it went from 1 million to 1.2. The sold median price was 952,000. Now it's 780,000. So they get some luxury stuff and some really cheap stuff that really messes with all these numbers. But Moore Park is going to be our biggest loser for this month. Their overall, where'd we go? Median sales price has fallen almost 10%. I don't think that's a big indicator. I don't think if you live in Moore Park, you should freak out, because again, only 16 listings sold. If 3 of those were luxury, that could really mess up the median prices. But in terms of our basic data, Moore Park was our biggest loser with the biggest price drop. Their days on the MLS, on the other hand, paint a completely different picture because they are going down. It's only 26 days, 23 days in that range to sell your home out there. And the absorption rate is also down to only 1.38. So very, very mixed info coming from Moore Park. So if you do live in Moore Park, don't take this data too serious. Let's talk about your specific home and not the overall average, because it's just such a volatile place. And the big thing is that we only had 13 listings sold compared to 26 this time last year, which is just such a small group that, again, a couple of really significant outliers will really mess with it. And then in terms of Thousand Oaks, which is my home turf, again, we kind of flatlined on a number of listings. Everything's pretty relatively flat, right, in terms of how much the market's moving. Again, very weird because we expect a big uptick for the summer and then down in the fall. So it's going to be very interesting to see if it stays stable throughout all of the fall and holiday seasons, or if it just stays flat because that's just our new normal. I don't know. In terms of sold price, it took a bump up to almost, not quite, $1.1 million being our median sales price. Then as we look at the absorption rate, it's creeping up to 1.89, still a very, very strong seller's market. Sold to list ratio, people are selling for 99.4% of their listing price on average. People are listing kind of high. Again, lots of dreamers. Days on the MLS, you're looking at around 38 days from day you list to day you close. And the price volume is, staying, again, pretty stable. We're not seeing too much weirdness there. Our absorption rate has gone down 10%. That's not enough for me to really stress about. But our median sales price is up only 2.8%. So they're one of the smaller decreases year over year across the county. I'm sorry, that's the average is only 2.8%. But I don't like that because, again, the median sales price, that's what we need to talk about. The median sales price jumped up from $945,000 to $1,090,000. So we had a 15% median sale price increase, right?
Well,
so again, the for a minute they were like, it's going up 20% a year. That can't happen forever, right?
sure.
15% again. I mean, I always want to take my clients and like beat them over the head with like 15%. It's going to go up 15%. Like, if you can't afford it now, then we really need to buy because it's not getting better, especially with 15% price increase on top of just the month over month, like 5% or 0.5% rate increase, which is like another 5% increase to the price, right? So like if you wait a year, what are you paying now? Like 25%, 30% more for the same house? Like, good grief. And again, that's pushed by the number of listings being down. Thousand Oaks hasn't been impacted as much as everywhere else. We only have 14% fewer sales than last year. Another one of my favorite cities, Camarillo. Again, Camarillo is one of our main locations for senior housing. They have Leisure Village, which is our biggest senior community that's not manufactured, on top of, I believe, is it 3 or 4 senior manufactured communities. So they have a very, very strong demographic of discounted homes, on top of a lot of affordable housing, on top of just a generally lower price range in general. So they're impacted completely different than anyone else we've talked about so far. Their number of listings has plummeted, right? I know that our active listings are up, but people just aren't buying there as much. We're seeing, where's my sold listings? Sold listings is black, yeah. Is only 46 compared to it's typically been closer to like 50, 60. So it's down pretty significantly. And it's really interesting because I want to say 12 months ago, there were no listings in Leisure Village. I mean, there were none. There was nothing we could do to get homes on the market. And last I checked a couple of days ago, there were like 7. So over the span of a year, we went from not being able to hold anything to, having stuff sitting for a little while. It's been a really big change. But that hasn't impacted prices. Our sold median price month over month. We're not talking year over year. We're talking month over month. Jumped from 765 to 825. That's crazy, right? I mean,
That's bonkers. Yeah.
That's a huge jump month over month. And again, some of that is senior housing. There is a mix of luxury mixed in, but still a huge jump given that most of their volume is very, very low pricing and they have a lot of the low price stuff sitting. Another big thing that's really weird with them is they had their absorption rate skyrocket from 1.32 to 1.66. So, I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on Camarillo going forward because they're having some really weird indicators. But again, that doesn't mean that if you're looking across the county, you should like wait because some cities are more outliers than others, right? And if we're going to sell your home, days on market, they're not filling out of escrow really almost ever. So they're looking at about 30 days to close as an average. That brings us to our median sales price year over year being up 11%. 11%. Did your income go up 11%? Mine didn't. So, prices are up 11%. And our absorption rate is about the same, only a 3% change, but not enough to be worth mentioning. And it is going to take you in the neighborhood of 30 days to sell. Last year it was closer to 28. Well, okay. Median CDIM is 31. Median days on market is only 11. So a lot of the homes that aren't falling out of escrow are selling very, very quickly in just 11 days compared to 28 last year. So it's a lot of really weird conflicting information. And I think it's mostly because of the different demographics that are there because they have so much weird stuff. But it's going to be a big city to keep an eye on, I think, into the next couple months. I'm just kind of glancing over at these. Yeah, there was one super luxury property sold. How much did it sell for? Yeah, we had one $3 million sell and then a whole bunch of regularly priced stuff. So I don't know. It's the data is a little bit more volatile, but it's definitely a city to keep an eye on. Oxnard. Oxnard has a lot of affordable housing, a lot of condos. It's generally the more affordable part of the world. Again, number of listings are flat. Listing prices are zigzagging a little bit, but they're still relatively in line with where they've been. Because I know that we're at 768 right now, but we were at like 763 before. We saw 796. So it's zigzagging, but it's staying relatively stable for the most part. Absorption rate is at 2.2 and going up, which is normal for this time of year. Sold to list ratio, most people are getting 100% of what they list their home for. So people are getting the price they're asking. Days on the MLS is really high. It's at 53 compared to 42 as just standard days on market. That's going to be one of the big things to keep an eye on. This is the highest days on market in the county. The reason for that is, I think, because there's a lot more intro level buyers, the people that are getting their first homes, and they're going to be impacted the most by all of these changes because, a $600,000 house 2 years ago at, 2% interest rate was a very different deal than today at 7.5 with a slight price increase. So stuff in Oxnard is sitting a little bit longer than average. It seems like the first time buyers are getting hit a little harder than everybody else. Overall, their sales price year over year is still up 7.5%. So again, if you're thinking about buying, you just gave away on average like 50 grand by waiting a year. And our absorption rate 2.21, so not a lot of really crazy changes except for these prices. Prices just keep going up. And the reason I say it's a crazy price change is because keep in mind, before the pandemic, we would usually see somewhere between a 1% and a 4% change every year, right? And now we're at 7.5. So, we're seeing what historically would be maybe as many as 5 or 7 years of price increases slammed into 1 year. So it's not normal to have this going on, right? This is nuts. And then our number of listings are down 30%. So we need folks to sell. We need more homes on the market. And let me know if you have any other input or things you're seeing with these too, because I'm pitching my perspective, but you always have these counties to keep in mind too. Last but not least, Ventura. Ventura is it's luxury, but it's not Westlake luxury. We don't have a lot of low income housing in Ventura. We don't have a lot of like senior living, anything like that. A lot of homes on the beach, but not a lot of like special programs or big demographics of people packed in that can really mess with it. So this is going to be more in line with like Thousand Oaks as just kind of like a normal community. Again, number of listings is flatlined. Not normal, but I guess normal for our county now. Listing prices are up slightly month over month. They're up to 857 compared to 850 this time last month. The absorption rate is climbing up. So again, slightly more favorable conditions for buyers, but still well below 4, right? So it's still very much a seller's market. Sold to list ratio, on average, they're getting 99.6%, kind of in line with the rest of the county. Days on market, they're looking somewhere between 32 and 37, depending on if you fall out of escrow or not. And overall, our median sales price has gone up again, just shy of 9%. So overall, our biggest winners is going to be Thousand Oaks with a 15% price increase year over year. Biggest loser, debatably Moore Park at a 9.7% decrease, or Camarillo an 8% decrease. Was Camarillo decreased? Did I do that wrong? Camarillo. Median sales price. No, I have my notes here wrong. So yeah, Moore Park's going to be the rougher town. This isn't down at all. I was looking at days on market. So yeah, Moore Park's going to be our biggest loser for price changes, month over month, year over year, all that fun stuff. And then days on market, if you're in Moore Park, you're going to sell at record speed at 26 days. If you're in Oxnard, you're going to be record slow speed at 53 days. So,
all right, Moore Park, you are the weakest link.
It's just the most volatile link. It's like, like really when I'm doing these, Moore Park is almost always going to be one of the crazy numbers. And then sometimes Camarillo, sometimes usually it's Camarillo or Moore Park because they have just the weirdest demographics there with like Santa Rosa and also like Leisure Village. And well, Camarillo has the cheapest price manufactured homes too, which really messes with it because they have some for like $100,000.
Right. So if you hear my dog, I apologize. He's a year-old puppy and he's a complete maniac. So
Perfect.
trying to keep him at bay at the moment.
Absolutely. So if anyone has any questions, now is the time. But, in general, what everyone asks me every single time is, do I buy now or do I wait? Do I sell now or do I wait? Um, it's the same story as it's been for the entire year, really, I think, for the last several years. If you're selling, we don't know how long it's going to go up for. Sell. Like, it's a great time to sell. There's nothing really that should prohibit you from moving because the prices are right. The market is solid. It's a solid time to sell. Will you lose money by moving? Who knows? Right now at the current rate, maybe if you sell and don't buy something else, right? If you're just cashing out, and walking away, you might lose something. But most people aren't doing that. Most people are moving. So if you're looking to moving, it's a great time to sell and move. It's a good market. It's a lot healthier than it was 2 years ago, where you had to enter the crazy, crazy bidding wars and have all of the chaos that went with that. So everything's a little bit more reasonable, which I'm a big fan of. And if you're looking to buy, it's not a fun time to buy. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, you should buy now. It's the best time. It's only $10,000 a month or whatever, right? Like, that's not fair. But it's not getting easier. It's not getting easier.
Yeah, the data that you just presented is just showing you the 15%. Like
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
value prices are not going down anytime
I
soon.
mean, for all those people,
Barring.
for
Go
anyone
ahead.
waiting, really, I mean, because you have kind of like the two main things is like, well, maybe I can save for the down payment, but again, how much are you saving? Because if you bought last year at 3.5% down, um, yeah, sure, maybe your down payment's bigger, but did it save you? Like, did you save up over $60,000 in that year? Probably not, right? So, unless you're saving 50, 60, $70,000 a year on average, do the low down payment, get in and use your payments every month as you're like saving for down payment, right? Like, just rip off the band-aid, get into it. It's scary, it's hard, but my gosh, it's not doing it is worse.
Yeah, so I completely agree with that, Brian. And um, one thing that I was thinking about this past week, we had our branch meeting, and one of the topics we were talking about, back to rates, because that's what's driving a lot of this, what we're facing right now. Something that people don't really talk about, the 2010 to 2018 recovery from the Great Recession, the Federal Reserve bought large amounts of mortgage-backed securities, right? Quantitative easing was what was going on. And that artificially kept rates in that 4 to 6% range from 2010 to 2018. So people are thinking, oh, the 7%, 6%, 7.5% that we're almost at now, those are high rates. We would have had high rates in that time period too if it were not for this quantitative easing. So the rates have been artificially lower from that period and then again during the pandemic. So it's like just something that people aren't really talking about, but that happened. So something to keep in mind.
I mean, for me personally, I'm not nuts for that perspective because it felt like from whenever interest rates, however far back you want to go, they've kind of relatively consistently gone down, which felt like it caused prices to relatively consistently increase. And so we kind of had this going, and then the rates bottomed out, and then we jacked up the rates. And so, like, a lot of the arguments for like historical rates, I don't think is totally fair. But even though the rates have gone up, the prices are still going up. So, even for a lot of people that were arguing that, like, well, prices were only so high because of the rates. Well, also maybe not, because now the rates have gone up, the prices are still going up. So, so I don't know, it's complicated and hard, but at the end of the day, for most consumers, with maybe like a couple of time windows that are very brief in our history, Like we're talking the people that like bought in like 07, 08, like specifically those 2 years, and like maybe a couple other sets of 2 years or so. It's hard to lose in real estate,
Sure.
and even if you do end up in a time where it does crash, look at where we're at now. I mean, yeah, you had to deal with it for 10 years, but you've made double your money in the last 5, so I don't know. I feel like a lot of the fear, because a lot of people are afraid it's expensive, it's hard, scary,
Yeah,
but I
I
feel
mean,
like a lot
people
of the
don't want to
fear,
do something. People don't want to do something that's seemingly foolish, right?
right?
Nobody wants to do that, and the big media and everyone is saying it's a terrible time to buy, and so people don't want to do something and look foolish to their friends or their family or
Right.
their coworkers.
All the time, all the time. And I have a lot of investors, Airbnb, all kinds of other folks that reach out and they're like, well, it can't go up forever, right? It's like, it has so far. I mean, how long do you want to wait?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And the big, talking about rates, it really is that um, jump from below 3% to 7%. That unprecedented jump. That's what's really shocked people and shocked them out of the market.
Mhm.
Um, and of course, as you said, it's not like, well, you should just buy right now. It's like, well, it's expensive.
Right.
That's the other thing. It's not just a matter of choice, So
Our market here in general is also very, very unique. I mean, not to say there's not other expensive places in our country, right? But like looking back at when I was in Washington, 'cause that's where I started out, average home was $250,000 at the time, which was competitive. 2018, 2019 was considered like, oh my gosh, the market's on fire. Now we look at that and like like that was nothing. But at the time it was like, you have a job, you should get a house because $250,000, 4% rate, it just makes sense. Like you don't even need any money down, just do it. And that felt like really aggressive at the time. But now a lot of people with the payments, like I'm seeing a lot of people that have very good jobs, making very good income that are like, nope, I'm just gonna rent, and it's like it's fair. They could afford to buy, but you know, will it get better? And for a lot of those people, I think that we're turning a lot of even very qualified people into forever renters. And I don't think it's because I think it's because they either feel pressured or they don't fully understand the benefits to buying because there are so many benefits to it. So, it's kind of a weird dynamic and trap for a lot of people because it's just not easy because like back then it was easy, right? Even that area now has like doubled in price. So we went from buying being relatively easy, no brainer, to now you kind of really have to think about it and it's really tough.
yeah, certainly a lot more to think about, a lot more data and data that doesn't make sense historically because
Mhm.
again, coming out of the pandemic. So there's a lot of confusion, a lot of things happening that even the experts are kind of baffled at. So
And I mean, to keep it simple for all the folks at home too, I think I'm not gonna say the only way there could be a crash because that's not fair. There's a couple ways that there could be a crash, but at the end of the day, a crash is going to happen because there's a surplus of sales and not enough buyers that can afford it, right? So our median household income countywide is give or take 120,000 dollars, something like that. So the median home buyer cannot afford the listings on the market, right? There's some people that are select and lucky and using other money from other things. So, if there was something that triggered a profound number of people to sell, I think anything's possible. But with the rates that people are locked in at, they don't want to. Like, even if prices collapse, um, and they sold their home at a loss, their payment would still go up in a new home. So, the odds of having some mass sale, mass exodus, I just I can't see it happening short of like some crazy, crazy catastrophic emergency, which is what I thought the pandemic was. So I'm like, oh, prices are going to go down. There's our catastrophic emergency.
yeah, barring a complete economic crash, I really don't see that happening. So, and if that does happen, I mean, we're all screwed anyway. So,
Yep.
Yeah.
So any folks that are at home, if you have any questions, by all means, you know who to call and who to message. Put in the messages down below, comments down below, all the input you have for us, the things you like, didn't like. Let us know. We'd love to improve this for you. We do this every single month. There is going to be a video every Sunday on this channel. Colm's only in for the monthly market updates. For the rest of this month, we're talking about probate. So kind of sad and morbid topic, but also one of the most important and main reasons people sell out here. And it's messy and it's hard. So, if you are thinking about, any types of transactions, especially if you are dealing with a probate situation, this is going to be the month to join. And Colm, do you have any parting thoughts before we wrap up here?
I would just say if there's anyone that's kind of curious about a potential purchase in the near future, get in touch with me. I'm happy to run some numbers for you and see what we can get you approved for. And that is your first step to your house hunting. We'll get you pre-approved, and then you can go out and look at houses and see what you can get. So,
and it always feels like people are kind of afraid to make that first step to reach out to us. Reach out early. There's so many tools, there's so many cool programs and cool things that we can do. If you are serious about buying, it's easier than you think it will be. It'll probably be a little bit more expensive than you like because of the market, but it's always easier than people make it out to be once you have a good team.
Right. And, at least know where you're at right now, what your situation is, and where you need to be, or maybe where rates need to be for you to make a purchase. So it never hurts to start and create a game plan.
Absolutely. Well, everyone, thanks so much for joining. If you have any questions, you just do call Castro or Colm, and we'll catch you guys next week.
All right. Thanks for watching.